What if losing your job became the best thing that ever happened to your career? Today, we meet Laura Hardin, who transformed a devastating corporate layoff into entrepreneurial success in just 10 months. After 25 years in corporate communications, Laura launched Harden Heights Communications and now specializes in helping companies navigate major transitions. She's already exceeding her first-year income goals and is targeting $250,000 in annual profit within 5 years. If you're considering a leap into consulting or you're struggling with feast or famine cycles, Laura's practical insights on networking, client qualification, and maintaining work-life balance will help you build a thriving practice of your own. Stay tuned for this inspiring conversation about how betting on yourself and finding success on your own terms. Welcome to this episode of the Thriving Through podcast. Today, my guest is Laura Hardin from Ohio. And
Yes.
Laura, you characterize yourself as a communications consultant?
I do.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about your business and how long you've been in business.
Yes. So I have about 25 years corporate communications experience with some big name companies. I've focused primarily on internal communications, so getting information to employees at the time that they need it. After about 10 months of being unemployed, after my last role was eliminated, I decided something was better than nothing, and I chose to launch Harden Heights Communications as my next endeavor. And so far, I freaking love it. I don't know if I'll ever be able to go back to a corporate environment. I'll never say never, because I just think that's a foolish claim to make, but it would have to be a really perfect opportunity, because what I get to do now is all the stuff I'm really good at. And that's change communication. That's helping guide strategy during mergers and acquisitions. It's helping when morale is low and turnover is high. I can come in and dig into what the root cause is and try and find ways to help employers do better at communicating to their employees and keep everybody focused and productive during times of transition.
Okay. And it sounds like you specialize when you're defining your ideal client, it's that time of transition that's an important qualifier for you.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean I can't help with strategic communications in other areas. I just find that when I'm thinking about what I do best, it's those big projects, big transitions, big policy changes where somebody needs to come in and figure out, how do I keep everybody calm and keep everybody focused on delivering? You know, mergers and acquisitions, what happens to the employees? They know something's going on, and their biggest concern is, what's going to happen with my job? Am I going to have a job at the end of this, whether they're doing the acquiring or being acquired? If your people are too worried about keeping their job, they can't do their job as well as they need to. And there are ways to keep everybody's head on straight and keep everybody calm and keep everyone moving forward. And I can help with that.
Love it. Love it. When we talked earlier, and you mentioned it, that you were first looking for a job and then you decided that you wanted to pivot and become your own boss. When we talked earlier, you mentioned an aha moment during unemployment. Can you walk us through that pivotal moment when you decided to bet on yourself instead of continuing the job search?
Absolutely. So I had two sort of aha moments back to back, and both of those things made me recognize that I think I can do this myself. And the first one came when I found out that a person that I was working with when I was fully employed during a time of transition was presenting my work as a consultant. Right now, I'm not complaining about that. I was an employee. I was doing the job. I was getting paid for doing the job. However, when it came time to present the information, I wasn't given the opportunity to do that. And that was really frustrating, right? Because then this consultant came in and got paid quite a bit of money, basically to present what I was doing. And I realized, hey, wait a minute, I did all of that. I can continue to do all of that. And the other aha moment that I had was a random conversation in the parking lot. I was dropping off my daughter, and he was dropping off lunch to his daughter. And he is a very successful entrepreneur in his own right. He has a couple of kids that are successful entrepreneurs. And when he said, like, how's it going? What have you been up to? I mentioned that I lost my job. I was reorged out of a role, and that I was looking for my next gig. And it was the beginning of this sort of bananas job market. And I was talking about the fact that I just couldn't find anything that was a good fit. And he said to me, why don't you do your own thing? Why don't you set up your own LLC? It's really not all that hard. And you could start to do for yourself what you've always done for companies. And my initial response to him was, if I want to hustle that hard to keep selling myself all the time and keep going out on a limb trying to find new clients. And the more I thought about that response, it occurred to me, I've always been an overachiever. I've always gone the extra mile. I've always had outstanding employee reviews when I met with my manager. I was always working on vacation or answering calls after hours. And it didn't even bother me. Like, it was just part of the job, and I enjoyed what I did. So why on earth would I not hustle for myself the same way I was hustling for a giant corporation or even a mid-sized corporation? And it started to occur to me that I was hustling anyway. I was always going above and beyond. I was always answering the phone after hours. So it became one of those, that's a silly way to look at it. When it could benefit me, why wouldn't I jump on that? So those two sort of aha moments happening back to back made me realize I can do this. And what's the worst thing that happens? I launched this business. It doesn't go well. I don't get clients. I continue to look for other work. I mean, that's the worst thing that happens. And the best thing that could happen hasn't even happened yet, because I am a different person today than I was 10 months ago. I am happier, I am more fulfilled, and I have had the most amazing clients come out of the woodwork, ready to support me and ready to work with me. It's been so much fun and so exciting.
So it's good that you had your aha moments back to back, and importantly, you acted on them.
Yes, yes.
What was the scariest part of launching your consulting business, and how did you overcome that fear?
So the scariest thing was I was let go from my previous corporate role 10 days before my oldest daughter started college. And the thought of struggling through and trying to find ways to pay for her to have the full college experience was almost paralyzing. I was very panicked. And while I was not entirely happy in my role at the time, I was certainly not anticipating my job being eliminated. So it wasn't the worst thing that could have happened, but it was about the worst timing that it could have happened. And my two daughters are very close in age. So back to back, the next year, my next daughter was going to college. And so I knew something had to give. And so after looking and trying to find a good match and not being successful looking for a corporate role, it was more about, I'm too scared to not do something different. Anybody who's looking for a job right now knows that this is a bit of a crazy market. It's different than it's ever been. I've never been without a job for more than a couple of weeks. Even if I chose to postpone my start date, from the time I was 16 years old. Here I am at 50, struggling to get a role with all this great experience, with all these, recognizable companies, always moving forward in my career aspirations. It was terrifying. So really just the fear of not being able to find what I wanted led me to say, I'm going to create something that will work at least in the interim. And now I don't think I'm ever turning back. So
I love that. So, I mean, it's kind of like which fear was worse, the fear of being in the job market and not being able to find a good job, or launching your own. And you also had sometimes we have a tendency to say it's kind of forever. And you said, for now, this is good for now. And
right,
what's the worst that could happen? I might be back looking for a job again.
right. Exactly. And one of the driving factors in my life is everything is figure outable. If we just take a
Marie
breath,
Forleo. Yep.
yes,
Yeah.
just take a breath and give me a minute and we can figure something out. No matter what it is, right? So what? We pivot, we give it a shot. If it doesn't work, we pivot again. Like, what is the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that happens is we stand still and keep banging our head up against a wall.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah, you've had extraordinary success in the first 10 months. And I've talked to a lot of consultants, and you've gotten some clients, you've got income coming in, you're meeting your income goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when we talked earlier, you said you attribute your early success to your network.
Yes.
What specific approaches do you use to reactivate those professional relationships without coming across as purely transactional?
Yeah. So I am not a salesperson. I get the ick when it's time to do a hard sell. Um, However, I'm excited about figuring out how I can bring value to someone. So I really focus on that aspect of things. And my network, first of all, I have one of the things I said was going to be non-negotiable is that I was going to post on LinkedIn every workday. Just it doesn't even have to be salesy, but I'm posting every single day for visibility. And I try and include examples of what I'm working on or ways that what I do can help you, but I sprinkle it in with things happening in my personal life as well, because I want people to get to know me, because I get excited about what I can bring to people. And the best way to show them how I can help tell their story is to tell my story. And my story isn't a sales pitch. My story is what's going on in my life and how I'm adapting and how I'm adjusting, and what are my successes and what are my challenges, right? Like, what am I struggling with? And let people in and let people get to know me a little bit, so that when it's time for us to talk about how we might be able to partner together and how we might be able to work together, they feel like they already know me a little bit. They already know about, I've got two girls in college, and they already know that I'm sort of new to entrepreneurship, and they already know these are the things I'm really good at and these are the things I struggle with a bit. So it was about reactivating that network, reaching out to people, and just letting them know this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm excited about it. And then when they commented or when they responded to me or when they sent me a note saying congratulations or good luck or whatever, keeping that going. And when I can see people in my network that potentially need me or might need me in the future, I make sure and keep that lead warm. So when I see them post about something happening in their life, I make sure I comment on it. If I see there's something going on in the company where they work, or an acquisition, I reach out. Hey, I see this is happening. Congratulations! What an exciting time! Please know if I can be of assistance, let me know. When I see people in my network that are struggling to find work, I repost their things and offer to help with any connections if I'm able. So it's really just about being human and being aware of what's going on around me, not just things that involve me, but the things that involve the people that I care about, and including, making sure I comment, making sure I'm aware of what's happening, making sure I stay connected with those people.
Okay. And one of the ways you do that is through social media, through like LinkedIn and commenting.
Yep.
I like that. Yeah.
Yep. And I also have an email subscription list, and people can sign up. And what I share about once a week, and it's generally somehow a combination of what I'm doing in life and how I can be helpful in communication. But mostly it's, again, to get people to know a little bit more about me. And so that list is, both serving as a marketing opportunity as well as a get to know me opportunity. And I like to throw some freebies in there. I try and encourage people to let me know what topics they might like to hear about. And if somebody's like, how do you create a lead generation system without investing in a big CRM? I have some ideas about that. Somebody says, how do I break through on this, block that I've got going on? If I have suggestions, I throw it out there.
So you're of value without expecting anything back. And by showing your value,
Yeah.
you build the know, like, trust.
I totally believe that you always reap more than what you sow, and you have to give things, you have to give with authenticity and genuine desire to give. People can smell a scam a mile away, especially now. I really do want to help people. I really do want to be a partner and come in and make things better for employees. That's why I'm focused on change management and change communications, because I care about people. I care about those employees who sometimes, those people who aren't maybe sitting at a desk all day, those people who are missing information because they're working in a factory or a warehouse, or doing things that they're not sitting behind a desk all day. I love finding ways, working out that sort of puzzle. How can we get information to these teammates so that they're aware of what they need to know?
I love it. How do you qualify potential clients to ensure that they're the right fit for your services?
Yeah, so I always start with the discovery call. And that lasts anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes, although I don't really put a time limit on it. If we need to keep going and keep having the conversation, I'm fine doing that. Um, and we just talk to get to know each other a little bit and to understand what the project is that they have coming, or what they're looking for. And the reality is, I'm very, very good at a lot of aspects of communication, but I am not good at all of them. And I know what I'm not good at. And I have access to an incredible network of communicators, both from my professional past and from my current networking circles, which includes a group of more than 200 worldwide communicators with significant experience. If I can't help a client, I can almost always refer them to someone who can. So I'm not going to take a job if I can't bring the value. If you need a PR representative, I'm not your girl. I'm not good at that. I don't need to be good at it, but I've got dozens of people in my back pocket that I can refer you to. So it's really about getting to know what the project looks like, what do they need from me, and what value can I bring to them? And sometimes it's outlining a plan and then allowing their team to execute it. Sometimes they have a junior communications person on staff, and they need someone to mentor them along and help guide them through that strategy. And sometimes they need somebody to come in and do it all. So we can gauge what they need following that discovery call, and I can put together a package that would work for them.
Okay, thank you. Switching to kind of technical side, what systems or tools have been most valuable in running your business efficiently?
So the nice thing about doing communications is there's not a ton of overhead. I need a couple of things in place, but my biggest assets have been in-person networking and reading books, like learning more about how to engage with people. And I've been taking a lot of courses on how to utilize AI, not for writing because I'm the writer and that's what I bring to the table. But AI is great for automating some of those behind the scenes processes or coming up with some, high level outlines, or when I get stuck and I really don't know, what should I post about today or what should I write about today, I can ask AI a couple of questions and it can pop back some ideas and that might spark something for me. But it's evolving so rapidly. I feel like I'd be remiss if I weren't trying to keep up a little bit. So I dabble with AI a bit. I do have an email marketing, I guess, software program that I utilize so that I can keep track of my subscribers and send out things that matter to the people who want them, right? So I think it's sort of important that I don't just blast out and spam people if they don't want it. I need to have a system to help me if they are interested in something in particular, or if they want to unsubscribe. I always want to be respectful and make sure I have that consent, so that I can, engage with them. And then my website, like I try and technically it's a blog, but I prefer to refer to it as articles. And I post articles and I try and be helpful and share tools and tricks and tips that I use with people through the articles that I post on my website. So it's pretty low key. I don't, I'm not investing a ton in a lot of systems because I just don't need them.
Mhm. Okay. How do you handle the uncertainty that comes with consulting, especially the feast and famine cycles?
Yeah, that's definitely anxiety provoking. You sort of never know, that's the beauty and the terrifying truth about being a consultant. I'm able to come in, get on board fairly simply, get the work done, and then walk away when the project's over. But that also means that if budget runs out, I'm the first one to go, right? You're not going to get rid of employees that are on staff as quickly as you'll get rid of someone in my position. It's a lot easier to cut that way. So you're right. You just have to plan for it. You have to put money aside so that you've got whatever it is that you deem a safety net. I try and have 3 months like set aside in an account that I'm not touching, I'm not drawing from, so that in the event there's a month that I don't really make that much money, I can draw from that pool and then replenish it when things get I guess more active, when I get more paying jobs. So I just try and operate from a place of conservative spending. I will also say I feel like I'm very much a realist. I don't expect to become an overnight millionaire. I don't expect that this one email is going to make me, 6 figures. I recognize that for every seemingly flash in the pan, big money maker, a ton of work has gone in prior behind the scenes, nurturing and evolving and working on those leads and the offerings. So my financial goals for my first year in business have been very the bar's been fairly low, for my own sake. I wanted to be realistic and I've exceeded those goals. So that has been both an ego boost and a lovely surprise, because I really didn't expect to be terribly profitable in my first year. But my goal really was I wanted to be able to pay for my kids' college out of pocket. I wanted to be able to, have that money to cover those expenses. And I've been able to do that with ease. And so that's huge with 2 kids in college, right? I'm super excited because my oldest daughter is a junior next year. And so all of a sudden we don't have a meal plan and we don't have dorms to pay for. So that should be a nice win for me. It'll make it even easier to make my goals. But long term, I have some pretty, I guess what I would consider to be stretch goals. I'm hoping to be making $250,000 in profit in 5 years. So I'm working my way towards that. And that's going to take more than my network. That's going to require me to come up with some things that I can, create some passive income and start to sell things that aren't me necessarily doing custom work for people. So that's sort of my next phase. And this year I've broken out into sort of quarterly themes. And then 2026 is when I'm really going to focus on that passive income and get those things launched.
It's great. It's, your first year goal was paying for your daughter's college, and now you have a much bigger goal for 5 years out. What do you think could be a possible obstacle to you accomplishing that goal? What could get in the way?
Well, listen, we don't know what's going on with this economy long term. There has been so much. I mean, it's like watching a tennis match or a ping pong match back and forth, and tariffs and no tariffs and never mind and yes again, and all of these things. I think that could be a real obstacle, right? I think in general, the CEOs and CFOs and hiring managers are very hesitant to boost their hiring practices and to bring in outside contractors when they just don't know what might happen in this economy, when they just don't know what cash they're going to have to outlay. So I think that is probably in this moment the biggest obstacle, because the reality is I'm adaptable as an individual, running my own business. I can adapt. I can pivot and shift and find the next area to focus on. It's a matter of the people who can hire me and who can pay me. I think part of what I'm going to have to do is really establish myself as an authority and as a great partner and as someone who's easy to work with and someone who can deliver above and beyond what's expected. So that's the reputation I'm attempting to build in this moment.
Right. Yeah. And the recognition that there's a lot of uncertainty that's could affect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, as we're starting to wrap up, I have a couple last questions for you.
Yeah.
What is a misconception about consulting that you discovered once you started your business?
Yeah. So nobody tells you how you can make a lot less money and keep a lot more money than when you're in a high-paying corporate job. You are taxed differently. You have write-offs differently. You have, granted, things like vacation and benefits and things like that now fall on me to find the best plan and the best opportunity and to save up so that when I want to take time off, I can still afford to do so. But nobody really tells you that you get to keep a lot more of your money when you consult. At least that's been where I've found myself in these first few months. And even though, you pay taxes and you pay into, Social Security and things like that, there's a lot more that gets to stay in your pocket. And in my business bank account that really I'm not, it's okay. It can just sit there for the time being. So you can make a lot less and make a lot more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned that you outsource your accounting. What other tasks have you decided to delegate or outsource, and how did you make those decisions?
So I did outsource my accounting, and I did that because number one, I hate math and I hate bookkeeping. I just don't care about it that much, and I'm not very good at it. And I was actually looking for a tax person to do my taxes. And when I found this accounting group, they said, well, we'd prefer to actually do your books for you. And since I was like muddling through QuickBooks, trying to figure out, is this a recurring expense or a regular expense or a business expense, or what kind of expense is this? I decided to let them take it over. And they also are great advisors, right? Like when it was time, I had to get another car. And it's like, do I do this in the name of the business, or do I do it for myself? And do I take a car allowance, or how do I make this work? They gave me really great sound advice from a place of knowing what could be the best option for me. So far, the other thing I guess it's sort of outsourcing. I got a business coach. I got a consultancy coach, and I pay her, and she meets with me on a regular basis, and we talk about what things are working and what things aren't working, and where do I need to focus, and what does my income look like, and what am I saving? And she just gives really great advice. She's been doing this a lot longer than I have, and she just happens to be a communications consultant who has more recently taken on a coaching role as well. So I feel like there's a lot of synergy between she and I, like a lot of similarities. And I really, really like her. The only downside, and it's not even a downside, is she's in the UK. So all my meetings with her are very early in the morning, which is not when I'm necessarily at my best. But it's okay because she's great and it works really well for us. But that's what I really found the need to outsource. I hope eventually to outsource some of the admin and, potentially some of the, marketing and follow-up stuff, because I'm good at a lot of things. The specific marketing and outreach and stuff is not something that I love doing. But right now it's fine because I'm able to sort of control what I can take on. I'm not overly busy yet. Like I'm busy, but I'm not drowning. So once I get to a point when I'm drowning, I'll probably outsource some of that admin stuff.
Okay. If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice on day one of your consulting journey, knowing what you know now, what would that piece of advice be?
Honestly, the advice would have been to not wait 10 months searching for another job, start sooner. Like, I am a woman of faith, and I believe there's a divine power, and his plan is better than my plan. So I believe I needed that 10 months to be still and to listen and to be ready. And I think everything happens in its time. So I'm not complaining about that. But if I had started this after a couple of months, I think I would have saved myself a whole lot of heartache. I was experiencing some dark times. There was a lot of rejection, and it was something I'm really just unaccustomed to. I've got pretty thick skin, and I'm an optimist by nature. It was really hard applying to literally hundreds of jobs and just getting rejection after rejection after rejection. It was even harder when I would get to the final stages of interviews and they would say, we've gone with someone else. I mean, it was soul crushing. And it took a long time, and it didn't take me very long to bounce back when I started consulting. And I'm forever grateful for those first few clients that came in quickly to make me feel like I really can do this and I really can add value. I've always wanted, I knew when I was very young that I wanted to be a mom, and I knew I wanted to be a working mom. I said to my husband before we got married, hey, listen, if you want someone to be a stay-at-home mom, you probably need to keep looking because that's not me. We'll figure it out together, but I'm not going to be the domestic diva. That's not who I am. And I hope anybody who wants to be that can be. right? I believe we should all have those choices, but I knew I wanted to work. And so not working for 10 months was really painful for me.
Painful and lots of rejection.
Yes.
And we'll wrap up with one last question.
Yeah.
How do you maintain work-life balance while building a successful consulting practice?
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, and this will probably sound cliche, and you might need to ask me again in a year if I still agree with it. It has been so much fun being able to choose the projects that I work on, knowing that they're the exact right fit. In corporate America, you have to do your job, but then you have to do all the other sort of peripheral BS that comes along with it because it's part of the job. I don't have to do that anymore. And it makes it a lot easier to find, for me, to find work-life balance because I don't have to do all the stuff that I'm like putting off doing because I don't love it. Like all the peripheral BS. So honestly, I like when I log in on the weekend, it's because I have something I want to work on and I've got some good ideas and I'm going to jump in and get it done. Not to say I don't have days when I wish I could just curl up under a blanket and read a book, but the thing is, now I can do that unless I'm under a really tight deadline for some reason. I can take a day off without working too hard to make that happen. So I feel like as of now, I've been able to work it out pretty well because of the clients that I have. And because I've selected them and the projects have been good alignment, it doesn't feel as much like work. I don't feel like I have to push stuff down the road or kick the can, if you will.
Mhm.
So it's been easier for me to do than I anticipated because I love it so much. Not listen, I'm still kind of new at this, right? Not new at communicating, but new at the business side. So I might still be a little bit in the honeymoon phase.
We'll check back in a year and see.
Yes.
Laura, thank you so much for being my guest today. And for those of you out there in the podcast world, thank you. And this is a wrap on this episode. And until next time, keep thriving through.
What a powerful conversation with Laura Hardin. Her journey from corporate layoff to successful consultants shows that with the right mindset and approach, you can transform setbacks into opportunities. The key takeaway I want you to remember is Laura's philosophy: everything is figure-outable. And for those who are Marie Forleo fans, you'll know that that quote came from Marie Forleo. Everything is figure-outable. When faced with challenges, take a breath, assess your options, and pivot when necessary. That's the advice from Laura Hardin. Here's how you can put today's insights into action. Start posting consistently on LinkedIn to maintain visibility with your network. Focus on bringing genuine value to your connections instead of making every interaction transactional. Consider what services you might outsource, like Laura did with accounting, and focus on what you do best. And finally, remember that it's often better to start sooner rather than later. Don't wait for perfect conditions. If you liked today's episode, click subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to make sure you don't miss future episodes. And leave me a review in your podcast app or on YouTube. Until next time, keep thriving through.